I will tell you, tonight's lesson's probably not gonna go the direction y'all think it is. By the title, but we'll see. Alright, so our theme this year has been chemistry of the blood. So our theme verse, Leviticus 17:11, reminds us why this is important. And for the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the altar to make an atonement for your souls. For it is the blood that maketh an atonement for the soul. And again, as we talked about at the beginning of the year, that some almost exact same wording is used multiple times throughout the Bible, reminding us how important the blood is, and it is the blood of Christ that cleanses our souls. So we have gone through the year. We have talked about the different parts of the blood, breaking it down, the bone marrow, where the blood is created, the heart that pumps the blood. We talked about oxygen that is carried in the blood is our most important things that keeps us alive. Carbon dioxide that is also carried in the blood to get out of the body because that's toxic. We talked about our red blood cells, our white blood cells, platelets, plasma, which is this kind of the fluid or liquid that carries it all. Last month we talked about antibodies and clotting factors. This month, the only things are really left, although if you break it down minutely, there's all kinds of things you could say are in the blood, but in overall categories, hormones and proteins is what I had listed. I will say we're really not going to even discuss proteins because it kind of encompasses a lot of the things that we've already talked about, such as like hemoglobin is a protein, antibodies are proteins, some of the hormones are proteins as well. So yes, there's proteins in the blood, but I'm really not gonna discuss it as a separate thing in itself. So mostly tonight, we're just talking about hormones. But I know as women, we think hormones and we think basically our reproductive system, and then we think about when they go away later in life and how that affects menopause and hot flashes and those things. But there's a whole lot more to hormones. Hormones run the body. The endocrine system, endocrine is the medical term for basically our hormonal system, the endocrine system. It uses hormones to control and coordinate your body's internal metabolism, or a medical term, homeostasis. So basically it keeps everything where it needs to be. It keeps things from getting too high or too low, but and some levels need to be higher than others, depending on what we're going through at the time. So hormones are what regulate all that. Your energy level, reproduction, growth and development, response to injury, stress, environmental factors, all those things are things that the hormones respond to and help regulate. I do have a couple of handouts tonight. Where did I put that now? And I didn't make enough for everybody, so I'm gonna like pass around a few and y'all can kind of. This is like teensy tiny print. Even with glasses, I have to kind of struggle. But basically, it lists, and I didn't want to like go through this and have you guys write it all down, so I just printed it off. Where the hormone is produced, what the hormone is, and its function. And then it's like columns, so it goes down here, and then down here, and then there's more in the back. Just to kind of give you an idea of how many different hormones are in the body. And also, they're produced in adrenal glands, pituitary glands, several of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are in pituitary glands. Kidneys produce hormones. Pancreas produces insulin. That's one a lot of people are familiar with, diabetes and things. So our ovaries produce estrogen and progesterone. Parathyroid gland, thyroid glands, back to adrenal glands again. Anyway, so I just kind of printed this off. I think I only have a couple of them that printed as well. So I didn't leave something off. I'll start one on each side, just to pass around, just to kind of look it over. And I'll start one that side and one this side, and then I'll start one. Just to kind of give you an idea of, I mean, obviously, I'm not going to test you over it, but where all they are. This one is a little bit more condensed, sort of saying the same thing, but a little bit easier to read. So I made a few more copies, still enough for everyone. I don't think I have enough for everybody, I only 10, but it lists the hormone, tells you where it's produced and what it does. And this isn't all of the hormones, it's just kind of the more well-known ones, I guess you would say, that we usually think of. But I printed that one off just to show you how many hormones there really are. So I'll pass some of these out. If anybody wants to keep one, we can make some extra copies too, but I think I have like 10 of them, so we should get most of it. I'm gonna give one to like the here, see how far they go. You guys one, you guys one. Yeah, an extra. We didn't get it. I just thought it was kind of a little bit better designation of the hormones. And again, I know you guys aren't going to remember the hormones or what they do or where they're made, but I just wanted you to just be aware so that of how many they are, how many different functions they have, how many different parts of our bodies have to coordinate together to produce all of these different things, and just how miraculous our body is and how I made it. So, there are three main categories, or as far as like looking at the physical structure of a hormone. There's the three categories are steroids, amines, and peptides or proteins. So the steroids are they're lipid derived, which lipid is just fat. Lipid derived hormones that have a structure of like 3 rings joined onto another ring. So if you think about like a circle with 3 circles attached to it, that's kind of what it looks like if you had a magnifying glass and could break it down. So they come basically from cholesterol. Examples of those are testosterone and estradiol. Sorry, my voice is like fine 1 second and then all of a sudden it disappears. So I'm trying to get all the words out, but some of them are kind of hanging there. The second category or structure types of the amines are very small molecules derived from amino acids. Examples of those are epinephrine and norepinephrine. And then the last one, the peptides or proteins are little chains. They're just linked together in long chains. And the examples of those are oxytocin and antidiuretic hormones. So again, I know y'all aren't gonna remember all that, but there's 3 completely different structure types that all the hormones are kind of broken down into. So what do? The functions of hormones. Hormones are basically chemical messengers that affect and manage hundreds of different bodily functions and processes. So some processes may even involve a chain reaction of several different hormones. So this hormone activates this one, which activates that one, which does something else. So sometimes it's not just one hormone acting in itself, it's several working together. So if you think of a hormone like a key, a specialized key, they each have a target tissue that only they will work on. So if you think of the key and the lock, so if a hormone comes to a certain hormone receptor and it doesn't fit, it won't react. It can't give a message to that receptor, only to the ones that it fits with. That makes sense. So there's lots of different receptors in the body, but only each hormone has particular receptors that it will work with, and only with those. So they're traveling through the blood all the time, but only the receptors that they'll unlock will react to them. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. Too much or too little of any hormone in the blood can really lead to significant problems and even be deadly. So, as we know, somebody doesn't have, any insulin in their body, then their blood sugar is going to go through the roof and they're going to have a stroke and die. On the other hand, when their insulin's really, really high, it's going to knock their blood sugar down to nothing, and again, you can die. So it's important to have, an appropriate amount. And that's just one example, because a lot of us have heard about it, familiar with insulin, but it's basically the same way with all, our thyroid, a lot of people are on thyroid medication nowadays because it's important that our thyroid levels are in the appropriate range. Sometimes for whatever reason, our thyroids stop producing what they should. So if our thyroid levels are too low, our body doesn't function right. Some people have what they call, I think, Graves' disease, where the thyroid levels are too high. So they have to take something else that counteracts that to bring it down. Basically, they're the micromanagers of our body. You can think of it that way. So they've got to take care of, you've got your head and your heart that run the body, so to speak, right? You think of the brain and your vital organs as being those you can't live without them, of course. But the hormones are the ones behind the scenes making everything actually happen. So the brain may decide what it wants to do, but if it didn't have hormones there, then nothing's going to get done. So I'm going to transition that right on into our spiritual application of what are hormones in our church and in our homes. Anybody have a guess? Just curious. So, mothers are hormones of the family, right? Because don't you micromanage every aspect of the family and keep it running, and you are constantly adjusting and having to do sometimes more than one thing at a time, and trying to, and within the church, we also have, maybe not particular mothers, but we have our church teachers and the women of the church that are leaders, of course our pastor's wife being at the hierarchy in that structure. But I think, also all of the leadership positions within the church are so important. Whether it's a nursery worker, a children's church worker, wherever you're at, it's an important role. And without all, one person can't do everything. So if the pastor's wife was the only woman in the church, we'd kind of be in trouble, I think, because there's a lot of things that, she can only be awake for some hours of the week. So it takes a lot of people working together. So let's look at some scriptures. 2 Timothy 1:11, that's where we're going to start there. Second Timothy 1:11. And I'm just kind of wanting to look at how that God appoints the people within our church, not just the pastor, but other leaders and people within our church. Whereunto I am appointed a preacher and an apostle and a teacher of the Gentiles, is that one. Let's also look at 1 Corinthians chapter 12. I had a bunch of different scriptures written down. I'm going to try to kind of narrow it down here. 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 28 and 29. Yes, and God has set some in the church, first apostles, secondarily prophets, thirdly teachers. After that, miracles, then gifts of healing, helps, governments, diversities of tongues. Are all apostles? Are all prophets? Are all teachers? Are all workers of miracles? And we could read on, have all the gifts of healing, do all speak with tongues, do all interpret, but covet earnestly the best gifts, and yet show I unto you a more excellent way. I mean, I think just the importance of all the different positions. Not one is necessarily more important than another, but they're all very important. And God has appointed different people, different gifts in different areas for a reason. So let's go to Titus chapter 2. Titus chapter 2, verses 3 through 5. The aged women likewise, that they be in behavior as becometh holiness, not false accusers, not given to much wine, teachers of good things, that they may teach the young women to be sober, to love their husbands, to love their children, to be discreet, chaste, keepers at home, good, obedient to their own husbands, that the word of God be not blasphemed. You know, that what stuck out to me in that verse is he's not talking to the pastor's wife there. She's not the only one that has a job to teach the women of the church. It says the aged women likewise. So he's not identifying, you don't have to be in a particular role, a teacher of a class of young women or anything. He's just talking to all the women. And so I think by aged, I guess this is my interpretation or whatever, that those that are more mature in the faith, that have experience. And sometimes you may have only been saved 2 years, but you may be more spiritually mature than somebody that just got saved yesterday. You know, so any of us really can be an influence and a teacher to those others, and maybe not even just within the church, but all of those are in our sphere of influence. That makes sense. I feel like I'm having a hard time getting my words out. Jeremiah 1 through 5. I know you guys all know this verse, but it's one of my favorites, so I wanted to read it.
I'm sorry, Jeremiah what?
Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5. In this, I'm transitioning to more of within our homes instead of the church, but there we go. Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee, and before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee, and I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. Where I'm getting from this verse in relation to this devotion is just like, you know, we talked about the hormones are like a key that fit a particular lock. And each hormone has to react with a particular receptor for it to work. So each mother has a particular child that God appointed to you. And you could look at that within the church too. God put us each where we are for a reason. It's not an accident that you're in this church. It's not an accident that you're at this ladies' meeting tonight. But I think, you know, each of us, whether you're thinking of it from the child's perspective, you don't have your own children. God gave you the mother He did for a very specific reason. He appointed you to that mother before you were born. And then from a mother's perspective, He gave you that child. He appointed that child to you before you even conceived that child. That was to be your child. So it's just like the key and the lock have to fit together uniquely. So mothers and children do too, because God knows what each child needs, and God knows what each mother needs also from their children. Sorry, my voice is getting for so much. And I think the same within the church too. God knows what our church needs. And we have a lot less women now than we did at one point in time. But God knew that this church needed you. And He needs you to be here. He needs you to stand in the gap and fill the holes where the other ones aren't anymore. He needs each of us to stand up and be what we're supposed to be. Kind of go along with your, how did you say it at the beginning? What's
It's
the
game
thing?
time, like
It's
we
game
had our,
time.
we had our
There you go.
revival, it's time to huddle up.
Huddle up, yeah,
It's game
it's time to huddle up and show up. And, you can't huddle if you're not there, right? You gotta be there. So, just like the Bible says, not to take the assembling of ourselves together, we gotta be there to assemble. So, all right, I think I got way off my notes and just kind of skipped ahead, but so let me see what I forgot.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, so going back to the church, there was a little bit I kind of left out that, talking about like God's given each of us specific jobs within the church. And, you know, sometimes we may wonder, like, and maybe within our church or maybe even looking at other churches, like, why, Brother Nelson's been here for how many years? 34 years?
Mhm.
Like, why has God left him here for 34 years? That's a long time for somebody to be in the same place. You know, obviously God has a really good reason. And maybe a teacher that you think, man, she already retired. Or, you know, or why does God, well, maybe there's that one kid that only she can reach, that God knows she needs to be in that class. And maybe that kid hasn't come along yet. But God knows that she needs to be there, or he needs to be there. Or Brian needs to be a director for how many years?
28.
Yeah.
Going on 28.
He's tried to retire
Yes.
a lot.
We're waiting on Zaylin to come through.
That's it. And then it'll be your grandkids. Things may not always make sense to us, but you know, God has us each in whatever role we're in, whether it be teacher or nursery worker or children's church worker or washing the dishes after a meal or, you know, whatever. It takes all, or cleaning the church, you know. I know some of y'all been coming up and cleaning and helping out, and some of y'all might be doing stuff that I'm not aware of, you know. But it takes everyone stepping up and being a part and filling these roles that have got to be done. And there's probably always still something that's left out or a role that's not held up. I'm sure if anybody is bored, preacher could think would be something to do. He'll let you know, although it's kind of hard sometimes with him.
Yeah.
He just does it himself.
Yes, it does. Always does.
But if you just come and say, I'm gonna do it, preacher,
Yeah.
show me how, or tell me where it's at. Sorry, one more thing. Okay, so Colossians 3 is the last scripture I think of tonight. That's another one of my favorites that I like to go to all the time. And you guys probably know this one pretty well too. Colossians 3:23-24. Says, and whatsoever ye do it heartily as to the Lord and not unto men, knowing that of the Lord ye shall receive the reward of the inheritance, for ye serve the Lord Christ. So whatever role he's put us, whether we understand it or not, or whether we like it or not, maybe it's not the first job, you know, first role that we thought we were most fit for. Wherever God's put us, we need to do it as to the Lord, as heartily as with our, I think heartily means with our full heart, you know, give it our all, put it in our vernacular, give it 100%, do the best we can with whatever we're doing, because we never know. You know, I didn't get to be here yesterday. We were up in Branson. We got to go to Faith Baptist Church again in Spokane, where Brother Mueller used to pastor. Now they have a different pastor, but he's a really good preacher as well. But anyway, I saw that Natalie got saved yesterday morning, and Tammy got to lead her to the Lord. What life is that? What if Tammy hadn't been here yesterday morning? Probably somebody else would have led her to the Lord, most likely. But I know without asking you that that's something you wouldn't have wanted to miss.
Right. For sure.
I'm sure the highlight of your week, maybe your
It was.
you know, to be able to lead someone to the Lord like that, especially a young child. Anyway, you just want to always be there. You want to give your best. I know you guys know this. This is trying to be that. Come on, let's huddle and let's share and let's encourage each other and lift each other up. And you all know it, but sometimes we need to remind each other. Sometimes we need that, you know. just like the teams huddle and, you know, cheer and pat each other on the back and try to, and high five. We need to do that with each other here in the church too. And we need to do it within our homes. We need to remember, you know, our families, units, and some of you have kids at home, I guess some don't. Some of you have grandkids that are in your home a lot. But whatever your family situation is, even if they're not living under your same roof anymore, don't forget to encourage them, pray for them, reach out to them, you know, pat them on the back when you do see the positive, you know, lift them up, cheer them on so they'll keep going. Because sometimes, you know, you may be kind of flying, you know, all gone through the highs and lows. And sometimes when you're in the high, you may not need that so much. However, if you're floating along doing really well and you're not having that encouragement lifting you up, then the faster you come down off of that high. So the more encouragement you can have, you know, lifting you up, patting you on the back, reminding, and we shouldn't do things so that we'll get the glory of other people. That's not our motive. But from the other perspective, when we see someone that is serving the Lord and doing things, let's do our best to encourage them. Let's keep it up, you know, you're doing great, this is wonderful. Not to praise them so much as just to help encourage them. And of course we want the glory to go to God, but I mean, we are human, all of us are, and that encouragement from each other is important. You know, if we feel like we're out there all alone and nobody cares, nobody sees anything I'm doing, yes, we should still do it because God said, you know, do everything heartily as the Lord, but it sure is a lot harder. So instead of making it harder on those around us and those we love, let's try to make it easier on them. But we can't lift them up and encourage them if we're not there ourselves. Right? So, and I'm preaching to myself. I'm not trying to accuse y'all of anything that I'm not, you know, pointing, as they say, if I point a finger at you, there's 3 pointing back at me. So, I know I'm not always been the best at it either, and I've had my share of downs as well. But I think I was also lifted up with the revival messages, and it just reminded me again how important it is to support each other and make it fun for each other. Make it, you know, be that face that someone can't wait to see when they come in the door. Because they know you're going to be smiling and you're going to be happy to see them and you're going to give them a hug. And sometimes if it's, you know, I think some of these kids just instantly run to certain people they know are going to have their arms stretched out.
Yeah.
A hug. So be that person that, you know, people want to come to church to see. You know, when they get up, I know I've had moments where I get up and I'm like, oh, I'm not sick, but man, my head kind of hurts and I'm really tired. I don't feel good, you know. But
Yeah, talk myself into it, yeah.
but if you know, there's been times where I've been like, oh, you know, so-and-so's gonna be there today, or this is gonna happen. I'll be like, yeah, I can't miss, because, you know, not that I should anyway, but let's just be honest, we're human, right? So sometimes it takes those little things that are like, oh yeah, I wanna make sure I'm there for that, or, you know, and maybe it's a special, I know, you know, sometimes trying to get the kids to sing is a challenge, but for any of y'all, really, sometimes I know, oh, they're getting somebody singing a special today. I really want to hear that. I don't want to miss that. You know, it's an encouragement. It's something that gives people incentive to want to be there, and maybe they need to be there to hear the message as well. So anyway, I think I'm rambling now. So I will conclude it with that. This does pretty much conclude the chemistry of the blood portion of our devotions. I am going to do something a little bit different for Christmas, just because it's Christmas. So we're going to go a little different. And next year, well, I think we'll talk about it more in December. I am going to do lessons again next year. So I've got a theme, but I don't have it all laid out yet. But it's gonna be good. I'll just tell you that. I think it will be good. Because the Lord is in it, and so far he's seems to be leading that direction. So, come to the Christmas meeting, with bells on, as they say. I think that just means happy and cheery. I don't know. Not literally bells, please.
Oh,
Well, we can take them off at the door. But if you're there at the Christmas meeting, we'll talk more about next year and what's to come and all that. So,